This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bill Fick Ford, the WCRA, and Pendleton Whiskey. Born in the iconic American western town of Pendleton, Oregon, and taking its name from one of the most revered rodeos in the world, my absolute favorite rodeo, known for the grass, the Pendleton Roundup. Pendleton Whiskey is a modern celebration of a century-old tradition. Pendleton Whiskey is barrel-aged in American oak and cut with glacier-fed spring water from Oregon's Mount Hood. For an uncommonly smooth, rich taste and complex flavor, the Pendleton Whiskey brand honors a heritage that inspires us to live boldly, never lose sight of the values we believe in, and taste the moment, wherever we may be. The legacy of the American cowboy is forged in every single bottle. A taste of true Western tradition is always worth raising a glass to. Discover more at pendletonwhiskey.com. Oh, and Pendleton Whiskey is the official whiskey of Pro Rodeo and of the PBR. Pendleton Blended Canadian Whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume, Pendleton Distilleries, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Please drink responsibly. Bill Fick Ford, the #1 Super Duty dealer in the entire country, is still taking care of their customers. It's hard to get trucks right now, but there's some perks when you're the #1 Super Duty dealer in the country. You still got trucks. Go to BillFickFordHuntsville.com to get the no bull discounts that no one else is giving during this crazy time that we're living in. Bill Fick Ford is still the place to go. In fact, if you ask me, it's the only place to get a new Super Duty dealer today. Bill Fick Ford. Who wants to be rodeo's next millionaire? It's time. That time again through the WCRA. You can win $1 million by nominating your rides or runs and earning points through the WCRA. Through the Triple Crown of Rodeo, the WCRA will award $1 million in cash prizes to any one athlete or collection of athletes who wins first place in any 3 consecutive WCRA major rodeos. $1 million is completely up for grabs. The Days of 47 Cowboy Games and Rodeo will be the second stop of the 2021 Triple Crown of Rodeo series. The event will pay out over $560,000 and will be held July 20th through the 24th in Salt Lake City. Get this, there will be 0 entry fees, people. You heard me correctly. No entry fees. The only way to qualify for the Triple Crown of Rodeo event is by nominating your rides and runs with the WCRA. Use promo code GAUGE10 for 10% off your next nomination. Again, that promo code is GAUGE10 for 10% off your next nomination. To learn more, just visit WCRArodeo.com and learn how you can earn a spot at the Days of 47 Rodeo and possibly be rodeo's next millionaire. What?
This is The Gauge with host Chance Conradu.
Are you freaking serious? It's Conrado. This is The Gauge, and I am Chance Conrado. On this episode of the podcast, we have got my pals Jeff and Andrea Busby. I'm sure you know who they are for the horses that they own and what they've done for the industry. Jeff is a self-made man, and I find it very interesting, all the intricacies of how he became successful to be able to even do all these things with the horses. This is a very analytical guy. It's a very analytical podcast. There's lots of high-level details about aviation and parts and glues and solvents, and Andrew's doing weird stuff with her hands. Don't ask me why. I asked her to stop, but she wouldn't stop. Check it out. Are you good, Ty?
Just one more adjustment, and we good.
I've seen you every day. I've seen you've had a different hairstyle going a different direction.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that today where my hair is just inconsistent.
Yeah. What's that musician? She has the same hair as you. It's the girl power songs. I don't remember. Pink. She.
Her hair is pink, though.
Yeah, it was probably been that color before, too, though. Probably, right?
Probably.
There was a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you rodeo,
I think
so you
she's
listen
super
to a lot of
cool.
music.
We listen to Jeff's music.
What kind of music do you listen to, Jeff?
He's a big Nelly fan.
Nelly?
It's on your playlist.
Hey,
A lot of Nelly.
well, Garrett downloaded a lot of songs back when he was in high school, and
Well, maybe
they're still
he-
there. Right?
I mean, Nelly never
not
really
bad.
gets old.
It doesn't?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I like Nelly.
What do you think, Ty?
To be honest, I don't think I've heard a Nelly song that I recognize.
I can help you out right here.
All right. So that tells you he's 22 years old. Yeah. He did have some bangers,
He
though,
missed
that's
all
for
the
sure.
good
Who
music.
does that
Yeah.
song that was me?
Let's not go.
Okay, never mind.
That one I do know.
I figured you might.
Well, what is that supposed to mean?
No,
Age.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
You're being an ageist on me? Yeah, you must have heard that I'm having age troubles.
Already?
Age with a G, people. Already? Well, what was it
It's
like
not
when
a-
you were getting close to turning 30? Was it a catastrophe? What about you, Jeff?
That was so long ago.
You don't have to say when it was.
I was going to say that about you. Was no catastrophe for me. No
No?
problem. Didn't bother me a bit.
Busy enough where it didn't affect your daily operations?
No.
Yeah.
What were you doing when you were 30?
I'm thinking that hadn't affected me at 59, so it didn't really affect me at 29 or 30.
Really?
No.
I guess I have a very weak mind.
No,
I have a
it's-
lot to learn.
I'm just got the genetics of my mom and dad, Energizer Bunny. So
Yeah.
I got to stay busy.
Speaking of, when did you guys get together? Because clearly it was after he was 30, based on what you just said.
A little bit. A little
A
bit
day
after.
or two.
Day or two after that.
14 years ago.
14?
15, but nobody's counting.
Usually that's the other way around.
So why am I
Usually
math?
should be-
I don't. Don't argue with him. Don't do math with him. Like, he does math driving down the road for fun. Who does that?
Anybody wants to keep their mind sharp.
How do you do that while listening to Nelly? I just feel like that would get confusing.
Oh, I can multitask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't listen to Nelly very often. It's just when it happens to pop up on my phone because I don't know how to operate my phone.
Yeah.
That is
turn
true.
and I don't know how to turn it off, so I just have to listen
It's
to it.
dying because he's been on the stock market all morning, so he plugs it into the radio, and then Nelly comes up, and he doesn't even know it because I've always said, like, Armageddon can be going off, and he doesn't even know it because he's focused on this. So, I mean, there's probably a piece of me that wishes I could do that, but I'm like, he's just a titch below Rain Man.
Yeah. Yeah, because Rain Man would definitely be able to operate an iPhone properly. I would think.
So Tish, I mean, he
that's
can
the only
operate
thing.
it. He's
That's the only
like
difference.
trading stocks. He's
I can operate the stuff that
texting.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not like
Music that doesn't
Snapchat, probably.
doesn't make you any money. That doesn't do anything. So like we don't need to worry about the money.
Hey, I
the
knew how to
music.
I've downloaded about 28 songs in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it anymore, but
There was a time he was into it. So whatever he's into, like we're all in. Whether it's buying underwear online, buying ammo online, trading stuff, like he's all in. Breeding horses.
we got enough ammo to teach so many kids how to shoot a gun. It's crazy.
Or to hold off the army. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
a lot of
the
ammo.
latter is probably the most realistic out of all that nowadays.
If you need a safe place, like we're gonna outlast the U.S. Army. I'm
If
certain.
we have to fight the aliens they're now showing on Fox News daily come to your house.
Come.
Apparently they
We'll be
fly around
okay.
in Tic Tacs. I'm really confused about the whole thing. There was supposed to be a Pentagon briefing today. I didn't see it. Did you see that? No, probably don't even know what I'm talking about, do you?
No, I was busy reading up on when Nelly's concert's next.
He's so full of shit.
Well, since you came, we'll get you tickets.
Okay, good.
Because I'm pretty sure it's going to be at like HEB or something. He can't be doing that well. Not this late in his career. He's probably traveling around with Journey and Poison at this point. It's about the same time period.
I would go to that.
Nelly, Journey, Poison.
That would be
It's probably pretty
badass.
realistic. In no particular order.
I would go to that.
How old are you?
I know, but my brothers had 8 tracks.
Nelly's next concert's in Louisville, Kentucky, August 6th.
Hey, I know where I can pick up a bird dog there too.
Yeah, that's your new thing, right? We were just talking about that.
Kill two birds with one stone.
As they say, apparently.
Yeah.
All right, so we were kind of talking about over there the things we should talk about, the things we shouldn't talk about. There's no possible way I'm going to be able to let go of the things you said we shouldn't. But first and foremost, what I found really interesting is kind of your guys' approach to the horse industry. And I kind of wanted to talk about that first, so at least we do our due diligence and then get into some of the other stuff, like your autobiography. Jeff?
I guess otherwise I'll just sit here all night, so I'll talk about the horses.
Yeah.
We decided, no, let me back up. Jeff decided that he wanted to raise horses instead of buy horses. And I'll let you fill in the blank right there.
I got tired of dealing with the public horse trader on every corner and just wanted to raise our own.
That was much more eloquently put than you put it earlier.
Well, the nice thing is there's enough context in that sentence that we could probably talk forever on that. But the only person who doesn't know what that means is this kid, because obviously, if you didn't notice, he doesn't necessarily come from that background, but he's learned.
It's really hard to buy good horses.
Yeah,
It's hard to buy
now.
great horses. And yeah, we got, Jeff's been very successful. We've been very successful in the past. And he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I wasn't born that way. And so we kind of, Sue and Randy Wrist, we bought some colts from Grant and Ray a little. And because he was like, I am not buying. We're not going to keep going after trying to find these horses that by the time anybody wants to sell them, they're broke down. There's issues. Nobody really wants to sell the good ones because they're so hard to come by. And we went up there, and like I said earlier, Jeff tends to buy in bulk, whether it's ammunition, ammo, or horses. So Grant had all these
Ammunition and ammo would be the same thing.
Okay, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And guns
And apparently verbal ammunition to use against Andrea.
underwear and cinnamon. You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Like, we buy in bulk,
And
period.
margaritas.
And tennis shoes, like from Tommy Bahama this last weekend. Okay, so anyway, they had all these fillies for sale. I think there were 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I like that one. I tend to shop at Walmart. Jeff thinks big. It doesn't matter if it's, and I think that's something really unique about him, and I wish I had, is he thinks way bigger than I do. And so, you always hear that saying that we limit ourselves by how big we think. And I don't think he's ever thought small. And I have a tendency to think small. So I went up there and I was like, oh, I like that one horse. And he's like, I'll take all 6. And I was like, oh my God.
It wasn't quite that quick, but yeah.
It wasn't. He walked through the herd, he looked at him, he talked about him, and blah, blah, blah.
I did have a little bit of background. I did livestock judging in college. I was on a livestock judging scholarship back when they actually still judged horses instead of goats. But at South Plains College, and I had an idea how a horse was supposed to look, how you're supposed to talk reasons for why you placed them a certain way, and how they're supposed to move. And nobody was breeding horses that had enough substance and speed. You had all the horses that, you had the cutters and the reiners that all their rejects could be heel horses or calf horses. You had horses coming off the track, or a few people breeding horses for barrel racing. You had nobody breeding horses for head horses. So my original idea was we get mares with enough substance, put some speed on them, a little bit of cow blood in them to give them some common sense. And the horses that don't make 1D barrel horses, my thought was they'll become great head horses or heel horses or calf horses. They can be anything. It hasn't really come to fruition because the damn barrel horses are worth so damn much money. Nobody wants to. I don't even would you keep that horse? He's worth $40,000 as blah, blah, blah. No, that's not a potential rope horse. It's too expensive. So we've only made a few rope horses out of them, but we hope to make a lot more.
It's changing now. The value of rope horses has jumped in the last 36 months. Huge. Especially the last year and a half.
I would agree with that.
It's crazy. I don't think you can get a good head horse under 40 really anymore unless you're lucky. It's really changed a lot.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking like
This is back in the day.
a potential, just a potential rope horse that isn't even started. These things will sell for 30, 40, 50,000 as a barrel horse. You don't want to start out there. So we have some good ones.
So yes, we're there now. We didn't start out there in the breeding business. Our colts being worth 30,000. So we we're at Grant and Rails. It snowed. We flew
When
our-
was this, by the way, just to give context?
I remember it snowed, and it was in May or June, and we were in Canada trying to vet check these horses with Britt Conklin.
May 2010.
2010.
Ask him. He'd
Sometime in the
never
last
get in an
15 years.
argument, never
May
get in a
2010.
fight.
Or was it 14 years? Anyway.
May
Well,
2010.
2010, do the math, because he's going to ask you. That was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
11.
11 years ago. I don't do our books.
11 years, 2 days, and 36 hours. Yep, we're there.
Coming up on 12 years. But no, next year will be 12 years. So, point being,
Coming up in 11 months.
anyway, Chance wasn't going to spit out a number. But, yeah, so
So anyway, we went to look at these mares, and Grant had a great program started, and he had
that's a cool guy. Interesting. Cool guy.
yeah, he's a good friend of mine, and will be till the day I die. But it's just a chance that you meet a lot of great people with horses or through rodeo, and you meet people that are the salt of the earth. And Grant was very gracious host, and sold us some good mares. And what was
Because that's what, so
and
we
then
bought
years
the
later-
long story, like we got those 6 fillies and we brought them home, started riding them. And we had, out of those 6 fillies were 2 Blazing Gentilina mares out of Lady Perks. So Grant and Rail were together, and Rail had been to the Canadian finals.
that's called they were married.
Kind of, not yet.
Yeah,
but,
they were.
okay.
They were married.
Okay. So, had been to the Canadian finals on Lady Perks multiple times. Won Pinoca 3 times. I don't think it's ever been done since. So
3
there was
years in a row.
2 Blazing Gentilina mares out of Lady Perks. And Jeff, I liked one. He liked the other one. There was a mare out of her by Dash to Fame. And we bought her.
She just happens to be the mother of Benny
That's now,
and Mary.
she was, I think, number 3, number 2, or number 4, somewhere in the top 4 of the top brood mare of the year this year. And the black mare I liked is the mother to Jordan Briggs' horse that she's winning everything on.
Yeah, Jordan's killing it this year.
Yeah, so we raised that horse. But anyway, we brought all those colts home, and then Grant went through a little health scare of his own, and we bought Lady Perks and Foal's Dream of Cash from him, and
Brownie.
some other ones. Anyway, so our breeding
Sure.
program honestly got started through Grant Little. And like I said, he's a cool dude, interesting dude, great friend of Jeff, was there for him when he was sick. They've retired his call sign. He was an equivalent in Canadian terms of a Navy SEAL up there, but he was into horses. And he's out of the military now, but anyway, so that's how our program really got started. And we started riding those Blazing Delinas, and we're like, man, we really like these horses. And like Jeff said, he wanted to have kind of an all-around type horse. So can it run enough? Can it have enough cow sense to not be an idiot and work both ends of the arena, per se? So can we rope off them? Can we run barrels off of them? I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming. I liked that same style of horse. And, 14 years ago, there weren't breeding programs. The Myers had theirs going, and everybody jumped on the Dash to Fame train. And other than that, there weren't big barrel horse breeding programs. Judd Little had his going, and that was kind of it. And it has evolved. It took a lot of... we missed out the best part. We went and we had a plan, and I've told Sue this plan, so it's okay. So after we were riding those mares, and Jeff and Grant sold those Lady Perks, we were like, well, we're only missing one key piece. I'm like, pfft. And Randy had come through. They had moved Blazing Gentilina from standing him somewhere by Whitesboro to Jeremy Barwick's, and we had him there at the house for a couple of days, and I got to ride him, and he was there for a few days, and
About 30 days. That would be about a month.
I didn't think he was there that long. Anyway.
Depending on the month, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 28 to 31. Yeah.
So he was there, and we got to be around him and saw him and enjoy it. So we had these 2 mares that we were riding that we really liked, and we had Blazing Jet standing there, and we had Lady Perk standing there. We're like, hey, I think this works. Like, we like these horses. Speed, Cow, and the Blazing Jet. And I'm like, he's like, I think I want to buy Blazing Jet. And I'm like, good luck. That's not going to happen. And we asked Randy, and he didn't really want to sell, and
They had a unique partnership
yeah.
on the horse. It was a complicated situation they were 50-50 owners, and they were very willing to talk to us. We saw what the Lady Perks, Blazing Catalina, 2 black mares that we had were doing and how they rode. And
Because they were
like
2 or 3
somebody
now.
else, 2 people or 4 people did all the heavy lifting for us.
Right.
Honestly, Grant Little and Ray L on the mare power side, and Sue and Randy Rist on the stud side. And we flew out Easter of, I believe, 2014, Easter weekend, to Marana. And
To try and buy Blazing Jetalina. And
well,
I'm like,
we flew out there to ask if they were in person.
Because you had already asked them over the phone.
No, we hadn't even asked them.
Randy had come.
We just called and asked. We just called and asked if we'd already bought a horse from Randy. We'd bought Blazing Honor, who's still standing. He's standing at stud. Turned out to be a great barrel horse, great team roping horse. Could have been a great ranch horse, anything you wanted him to be. We'd already bought him, and he had some injuries at age 4, so we turned him into a rope horse. But we'd already bought him, and we'd ridden those 2 mares. They were probably 3 at the time, but we could see the potential. So we just called them up, asked if we could talk to them, and they were no longer married, and they had a unique business arrangement on the horse. And we went out, met with one of them one night, had dinner with the other one the next night. Then we had dinner
Sue will
with
think
all of
this
them.
is funny. We had a game plan going in. We're like, okay, I'll bring her margaritas. You talk to her, because I'm like, there's no way she's going to sell this horse. Like, no way. And Jeff's like, come on. Yes, she is. I'm like, no, she's not. So we had this fight. He's like, we'll stay at a really nice hotel. And I'm like, okay, like, fine. I'll lay in the pool and I'll bring Sue margaritas. Like, how hard can my job be, right? And
we didn't do that. We went to, what was it? We went to...
it's a restaurant in Marina, but anyway.
We went to the... Gosh, I can't think of the name of that
It's a good restaurant.
yeah, it's a
And
great...
I brought her margaritas. So what's
but it wasn't
inaccurate
by the
about my
pool.
story?
It had nothing to do with the damn pool.
I laid by the pool while you picked out the contract.
Oh, my gosh.
So he didn't take his laptop.
This story's getting really confusing, Rain Man.
Okay, so...
Thank you. Thank you. Because it's got to be.
I can't remember the name of the restaurant. Is this a little place that they all go to in Marana?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Ty, you're
either.
going to have to Google it.
Google
'cause
Yeah.
quick.
I
Marana Steakhouse.
I must know at this
in
point.
case you ever go to Marana.
But we're committed to
All
knowing
I
what
got to
the
do is call
restaurant
Monty Joe.
Yeah, anyway.
Monty
Focus.
Joe knows where it's at.
Yeah. Someone knows.
So anyway, we went to this old school, great steak place that's on the side of the road, side of the interstate there at Marana. And we had dinner with Sue, and we asked her if is there a chance. And you brought her
did bring
margaritas.
her margaritas. I think that's the key to the
I
whole
had
story.
one job.
Yeah, you did your
I
job
did
well.
it well.
Yeah. So anyway, we're there 3 days.
And she didn't say no. I was like, you're going to get punched in the face across the table when you ask this.
So we basically spent 3 days pecking out a contract with no keyboard, touching the screen of the iPad. And this was a
Was it 12 or
9-page contract on the iPad. And then I gave it over to the attorney, and he turned it into 11 pages. And he's like,
We printed
you
it
gotta
off
quit
at
practicing.
Office Max.
he was like, you got to quit practicing law without a license. That's illegal. I said, you're going to put me out of work. But
That sounds like something a lawyer would
I'd
say.
wasted way too much money on those guys.
So anyway, we got him bought. And I think at that time, I think the most mares he'd bred in a year was 20. And Here we are.
20 to 40. But he had less than 300 babies on the ground at the time when we bought him.
Yeah.
Something like 240, 250, I
So
believe.
Mr. Math over here is always trying to get me to like do, and I do think it's really impressive what so from his very first full crop, you know, he was She's a Blaze of Move, who went to the NFR 3 times with Christy Laughlin and won Pendleton 3 times, and we called him Real Jet. Having a brain fart what his registered name is. Anyway, like those horses came out of his very first full crop. So he was a producer right off the bat. It just, you know, as I've said in other interviews for stallion owners, like, man, it is such a tough business. And I think the incentive programs have made it even a tougher business because everybody wants to own a stallion. I'm like,
Yeah, it's not a fun little hobby right now like it was before.
You know, Blazing Gentilina went and proved himself. He was the number 1 fraternity horse in the country, and then became, last year, I think it was pretty cool. And I'm like, hey, why is nobody capitalizing on this? He was the number, not only, I don't think there's ever been another stud horse that was the number 1 fraternity horse and then turned around and had the number 1 fraternity horse in the year. So, in I think 2003, he was the top fraternity horse himself. And then last year, in 2020, he was
Sire
sired the number 1 fraternity horse of the year. So that's pretty cool.
We bought him in, I'm pretty sure it was April of 14, May of 14. We went out there Easter of 14, I believe it was. I'm not certain about this, but I believe that was prior to Christy winning Pendleton for the first time.
It was before she ever went to the NFR.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, before she won Pendleton, because she went to Pendleton after winning.
She went to the NFR after she won
winning
Pendleton. So, yes, you're right.
So there's a lot of people who've done a lot of hard work, you know, from Christy to Sue and Randy Rist to Grant and Rael. We've been fortunate to put all these pieces together. And we put all our marketing money up front and went and found the best trainers.
This is where I was like, oh my God. Because
put them all out there right now.
Tend to do it on the cheap. I go to Walmart, like shop at Walmart.
So
everybody thinks that I probably spend the money around our place, and
so Janet,
it's definitely
Janet Brown, and
so that first year we put 6 or
14.
eight bunch of colts in with trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Not the first year, but the third year we put 14 out with trainers with Ashley Schaefer, Sabre O'Quinn, Jolie Montgomery, and Jenna Brown, and there may be some others.
There was a bunch
Smith.
of
She didn't get one that first year, but Sue got several and has done great with them for us. And Sue's been a Blazing Gentilina fan before we even owned Blazing Gentilina, and she's helped give us a lot of input on our horse program
so
and
that
saving
first
my
year,
life.
you know. So we
say
that first year, but we put those colts. We say Jeff's like, nope, I'm not selling them, because I was like, oh my God, we got to sell all these to pay all these print fees, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, this is stressing me out. And does it? No, but I'll always be the kid that grew up in Wyoming on the cattle ranch, you know. And
yeah, it's a very transparent, transactional business, the cattle business.
Yeah, and like it
Can't
stresses
really
me
afford
out
to
to
invest
this
for the long
day.
term.
Yeah, so you know, at the end, you know, my parents always say you're never cash rich, you're always land rich, or you're cattle rich, but you're operating off of borrowed money. So I grew up in that world, and having all those horses that first year, and we call it the first year because, you know, we started raising all those colts and we held them back instead of selling them. And I think it was a huge financial investment to pay those training fees every year, because those colts, if you don't sell them as long yearlings, I mean, you got to put them with the 2-year-old guy, and then you got to pay that training fee, and then you got to pay from the time they're 3 until they're
I'll help you
4
shorten this part.
with a trainer, with a horse trainer, before it ever comes to fruition. So you've paid vet bills and
Feed the whole
bills
thing,
and
yeah.
all of that money So every time the training bills came around, I'm like, holy shit, I hope this works. And then, right then, before those first colts hit, they were calling to put our studs in the pink buckle. And I ignored them, and I ignored them, and I ignored them. And I think I finally was like, okay, Jeff.
I think Chad and I got on the phone together.
Finally, the last night, I put Chad and Jeff on the phone together, and Jeff heard his business plan, because I'm like, I cannot go to my husband without a business plan. What is your business plan? Like, he is a corporate business world guy. Like, you don't get it. I can't just be like, hey, let's throw $25,000 at this, which we are blessed financially, but it doesn't matter. Like, he mowed lawns when he was 9 years old. His dad rode the railroad, like, it didn't come because it was like, he worked his ass off.
People
to get
have a problem
at.
with that, though. People don't, especially nowadays, they don't want to hear that, right? They just see the result, and then they're mad about the result for whatever reason. It's something I really get, because, I mean, you guys know very well where I came from. Mm-hmm. It's not a pretty picture, fiscally, for sure, and you have to...
I enjoyed staying there a few times.
Yeah?
I was looking at all your duck decoys out there by the barn.
Yeah?
I was like, man, this is my kind of guy.
Well, last time you stayed there, I was on the way to where I'm.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
It was pre all this stuff.
Yes, it was. Very much pre all this stuff.
Yeah. Guys, let me remind you how much we love Pendleton whiskey and how much you'll love it too. Here's the thing with Pendleton. It's not on every single shelf in the entire country. Sometimes you go to those small towns where the small rodeos are and you can't find Pendleton. That's where drizzly.com comes into play. Satisfy your inner cowboy by purchasing your bottle of Pendleton whiskey online. Buy it online at drizzly.com. Put it in the trailer. Pendleton blended Canadian whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume. Pendleton Distilleries, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And please drink responsibly.
Anyway, that I give Jeff 100% credit for that first crop of colts that hit. And everybody's like, oh my God, it's like overnight
So how much
success.
did I get for this last crop?
Oh, that's on me.
Whoops.
But, people think it's overnight success, and it is absolutely not. And kind of figuring out which mares worked on it, which mares produced, just because they, again, just like a stallion, just because they win doesn't mean they're going to produce. And just because a mare wins doesn't mean they're going to produce, or doesn't mean they're going to cross in your stud, or doesn't mean all kinds of things. And like Jet's Heart and Soul came out of that crop. Nikki's Top Jet came out of that crop. Famous, God, I'll never do this again. Blazing Blurry Fame came out of that crop. There was a whole Jet's Letters to Abby came out of that crop. So all these
actually pretty
horses,
impressive. So you're math and she's everything else.
yeah, came out of that crop with all these
Everything
different trainers.
else?
Well, not everything. We're going to
Okay.
get into the other things, but as far as to where we're at right now in the conversation,
Yeah, pretty much.
right there.
Yeah.
So all these horses.
We got a lot to talk about here.
So when they, again, Jeff was like, "Pfft," and I think that's a secret to his success as a businessman. He's kind of like, it'll work.
Yeah.
When I paid the
Conviction.
$2,500, or actually the $50,000 pink buckle, I was like, oh my God, Jolene, don't go up there and lay an egg. Like she had Prince at the time, and I'm like, I never told her. I'm like, oh, she's my insurance policy that this is gonna work, because I didn't know where that program was going.
It's a pretty
And I'm
good
like,
insurance policy.
I'm
let's be
giving
real.
it was a good insurance policy at the time, and so was Ashley. She had Jax, and there was some other really good horses that year. But I'm like, I just wrote a $50,000 check to these guys in Utah that I have no idea who they are, and I'm trying. Regardless of personally, I want our breeding program to make money. Like that's just, again, I was raised on a cattle ranch.
Did you want to, not to get off topic here, but was it really important for you to escape that cattle ranch mentality? Like,
Apparently not.
apparently.
I don't
She
think
hadn't
it's
got there
gone.
yet.
Like my dad and mom.
Did you hate it,
No, she
or did
loved
you
it.
like it?
Like I don't want to live in Lusk.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for the way I was raised. And I don't mean this ugly at all when I come to Texas, but it's amazing to me the amount of money down here. And I see, I feel like I'm going to get the one that's kicked under the table right now. I wouldn't have traded the way I was raised for anything.
Well,
And-
the way we were both raised is what
Yeah,
really attracted
absolutely.
us to each other. I mean, is she's talking about these things, but you know, we were attracted based upon the work ethic that both sets of parents put in us, and neither one of us would be sitting here if it wasn't for the work ethic and the character. We would never have been attracted to each other. We met because of horses, but we were attracted because of character. That's bottom line.
yeah.
That's kind of a rare thing nowadays because everything's so surface level in the world we live in. There's no depth in anything. You have to peel back so many layers to get depth out of anything.
Yeah, she grew up with the cattle ranch. I grew up in the cotton farming railroad on the edge of the Caprock ranching community. And my dad got his GED in World War II. He left high school to join the war when he was 16. But so we both grew up with very conservative, hardworking backgrounds. So it makes it easy when people help us, teach us, Grant and Rael, Sue Smith, Martha Wright, Ed Wright. We've learned a lot from these people, and we've just put it all together. It's not that we set out to, I didn't even set out to be an engineer, much less an entrepreneur when I was in college, much less a horse breeding program owner. It's just, it really goes back to God guiding our steps and putting us in the right place and us being able to act upon the opportunities He gives us.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people miss, right? Or maybe they're not brave enough to do it or whatever, and then they see people who do, and maybe they're uncomfortable. I mean, you certainly see that in this industry, right? You see, we'll use you guys as the example because you're the ones at the table, but people with successful businesses, which allow them to be successful in the horse industry, which, you know, it's kind of a snowball effect, right? You take things from all the different areas of your life and put them into one, and then you create a thing that is valuable to an industry.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. You know how you make a small fortune in the horse industry, right?
Well, you start with a larger fortune.
Yeah, because
obviously.
it gets small
It
quick.
does.
Yeah,
So, I don't even
You've
know
heard that one
where
more
we
than
were.
once.
Boy, I've heard that one.
But,
Boy, I've seen that one.
you know, we wrote the check for the pink buckle before Prince and Jax and those horses for sure year started. So I didn't really know. I mean, you know, Jolene's straight up business, and she'd send me a video every now and then. I'm like, ooh, looks pretty good. She's like, it's good. I'm like, okay. And,
Yeah,
you know,
because she
and-
won't keep one if it's not.
you know, I have the utmost respect for Jolene, and Ashley and all those trainers. But long story short, we wrote that check before those horses went to the pink buckle, and then from that first, so that's the first group of colts, and that first group of colts was those horses. The first year we were in the pink buckle, and then it's just kind of snowballed, and we're where we're at, and now we've got, you know, I thought this would work, and it wasn't like I wasn't in the horse industry. I mean, that's why we met, and I was running barrels, and we met over a horse that I swear to God he'll put his phone down when I say this. He tried to sell me a crippled horse. But he'll try and say I stole his horse.
that'd be Little Abner's in Marana that
There
we
you
took Sue
go,
to.
Little Avners. Anyway, but you know, I'd been running barrels since I was little, and
She came to Texas to try to steal my horse.
Mm-hmm.
he tried to sell me a crippled horse,
Mhm.
and apparently it worked out. So here we are.
I guess it did.
And he's still alive.
Yeah.
He is still alive, and he's our front pasture, and I get to look at him.
How old is he? Untold age.
I said, you know, time passes, and so I'm always like, gosh, he's 10-ish. But no, he's like, he's the same
20-ish.
age as Blaze and Jelena. Ironically, he fraternity
21.
the same year.
Mm.
Yeah, now he's 21.
Time flies. Okay, so let's go over to Jeff and add context to how all this stuff is possible. Was kind of obviously we heard about the lawn mowing. and the good upbringing and all that, but what followed that? Like, what was your path to, because obviously the corporate world is a lot different.
And he
than
gets
the horse
really
world.
frustrated. And I've learned a lot from Jeff, from the corporate. He's like, this would never fly
Well, there's a level,
in the corporate world. And I'm like,
as far as business being conducted in the horse industry, it's a half century behind everything else.
Yeah, and hey, this is I'm not trying to be critical of you guys, but Jeff Busby wouldn't fly in the corporate world. I don't fly in the corporate world. Corporate world is not, it's not patient enough. I'm patient to see something through. And so the company that I started, no corporation would have been patient enough and believed in the solutions that we were inventing to have waited it out long enough. So I'm not really a corporate guy. I'm an entrepreneur, and those are different. I've worked for large corporations, and it was miserable, probably for them as much as it was for me. But I just followed the opportunities that the Lord put in front of me. I went to college to be a veterinarian. Thank God, my chemistry professor, after 16 hours and a 3.8 GPA, he's like, why do you want to be a veterinarian? I'm like, oh, I want to go to some roping to raise my kids around horses. And he's like, do you realize that there's like 900 applicants per year? This is 1982 to go into Texas A&M, and they only accept 125. He's like, do you have any Texas A&M alumni in your family? Like, I'll be the second to ever even graduate from college, I believe. My dad got his GED in the Navy. No, I don't have any alumni from A&M. He said, well, I know kids that have animal science degrees, 4.0s. They don't interview well, or they don't have connections. They don't get in. He said, you know what they do for a living? And I knew they were county agents. They wipe snotty-nosed 4-H kids and help them wipe their nose. Anyway, wipe
It's
those
good that
kids'
you-
nose. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I knew that. I was stumbling with that because I got it backwards.
It's
So anyway,
2021. If we don't say it,
wipe these snotty-nosed kids' noses and wash their sheep and blah, 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 and make about $22,000 a year. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. He's like, what are you good at? I'm like, oh, math's easy. Like, but I've been a welder. I've been in construction. I've been a contractor. He's like, what classes you like? I'm like, oh, physics. That was very interesting. He's like, you ever thought about being an engineer? And I'm like, the pocket protectors, the 5 pencils. No way. He says, go over and talk to the counselor. This is at South Plains College in Levelland. See what you think. My parents grew up in the Great Depression. Mom was gathering cow chips out near Olton, Texas, to burn in the stove, not only to heat their house, but to cook their food on. They were both dirt poor growing up, and they instilled the values of find a good job, find something you can have consistent employment. And I remember the old cork board. I showed it to Andrew when we went to the Levelland Rodeo. I was like, that's the building where I decided to be an engineer. So didn't want to be an engineer, had no interest in being in aviation. The Lord just guided my path, put a lot of people in my path that gave me an opportunity to make decisions. So ended up being an engineer, went to work for Exxon. Then the oil industry crashed. I was low man on the totem pole, didn't want to ride boats in the Gulf of Mexico forever for Exxon. Came to work for F-16s and General Dynamics in Fort Worth, and wasn't cut out for the corporate world, and went into sales. I had how you tell the extroverted engineer from the introverted engineer, right?
tell me.
The extrovert, he looks at your shoes instead of his shoes when he's talking to you. I had no idea.
Jeff doesn't fit the mold.
I wasn't the typical engineer because I'd never really thought about being one. And ended up graduating from Texas Tech with an electrical engineering degree, went to work for Exxon, wanted to go into sales. Had guys interview me at Texas Tech that said I should not go into sales. I should go into the National Forest Service and
Be a civil engineer.
But
of sorts.
back
Yeah.
to where he ended up in Fort Worth working on the F-16s. He hated Lockheed Martin, which is now Lockheed Martin here
General Dynamics.
in
I was
Fort
miserable.
Worth.
Lockheed Martin is one of the strangest companies to do any kind of work with. The
But he
amount
was
of waste
like-
in that company makes no sense. They'd lose
Well,
millions.
none of
dollars
that
a year.
made sense to me when it was General Dynamics.
So he was
And-
like shooting pencils like you do in the 8th grade into the tile.
no, I was shooting spitwads.
Sorry. Like,
Spitwads
Was not-
and rubber bands. I learned how to shoot rubber bands on
you know, was
government
making
money.
$30,000 a year working at then General Dynamics, aka Lockheed Martin.
But it was good for me. I learned a lot there about what ended up helping me design and invent the first products. I learned material science and electrical wire harness design, and met some great people. That my director of engineering, he and I started out within 3 months of each other there. I went back probably
But how long were you at General
13 years later. I went back and hired a guy that started about the same time I did. He's a director of engineering. I was there 5 years.
But then you said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be stuck in a cubicle.
Were you
I'm gonna-"
miserable the whole time?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So he went into sales. I'm not shorten the story.
I was looking for opportunities outside to go into sales, to go into entrepreneurism. My parents had taught me how to run the lawn mowing service. My dad taught me how to run a concession stand. We had no idea I don't even know if the word entrepreneur was invented, but my dad at 11 years of age, he was teaching me how to run and calculate net profit on running the concession stand. So all those things throughout the years that my parents were teaching me led up to, like, I didn't want to stay in the corporate world where you're stuck in this range. Okay, you have this many years experience, so you have to be able to make between this and this. Doesn't matter how much you bust your ass, how many 365 days a year you wear a pager and you're on call and you come out there. I realized after about a year and a half, I was always taught, if you work hard, keep your nose to the grindstone, somebody will notice and they'll take care of you. Well, that was West Texas, the Panhandle. That wasn't corporate America. So after that first year and a half, I was like, I'm out of here. As soon as I can find a path out, I'm out of here.
So he went into sales.
I went into sales for a little distribution company, and
That's where he got his foot in the door at American Airlines, and I'm trying to speed this
started inventing.
We're doing great on time. No need to speed it up.
thank
Oh,
you.
we can go for
Well, let's take a bathroom break. Just kidding.
If you guys need to go,
No,
we can do
just
that.
kidding. No, anyway, I ended up being in sales for a distribution company, and American Airlines was one of my first customers, and we started within probably the first 6 months redesigning things on American Airlines aircraft.
because they figured out he was an engineer and he could fix problems, and so they came. The mechanics are the true engineers.
Like the
in my
mechanics
opinion,
at
from
the
these
airport
stories,
kinda
they're
start
not going to
coming up
like
to you?
this story. Yeah.
Well, this
yeah.
is at Tulsa, Oklahoma,
they'd
at
be
their
like,
maintenance facility,
"Hey,
not the airport.
Get that Busby guy. Like he knows how to fix stuff.
Well, kind of maybe, but there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, no, I met some really good engineers and people of good character that worked at American Airlines, good mechanics of good character, and my upbringing of chopping weeds in cotton fields when I was 7, welding for $3.25 an hour when I was in high school, and working with, I didn't know what the word diverse meant at the time, but working with multiple races of people and getting along because we just grew up together, went to school together, we did everything together. We didn't think anything of it. Well, I could relate to the union mechanics. My dad was a union employee for the railroad, and I would go out there and had my own American Airlines badge as a contractor, but we didn't really have a contract. We were designing and inventing things for American to improve their reliability. of their aircraft, and I could relate to both sides. I could give a presentation to the VP of procurement, but I could get the mechanics to tell me what was wrong with the aircraft and what needed to be fixed. And so the end user of the aircraft are the ones that want the aircraft to function better, be easier to maintain, and not cost money, because if that aircraft's sitting in the hangar an extra day, it's costing a lot of money, much less weeks. The manufacturers, they didn't really care back then. So our business plan was solve the biggest problems these engineers and mechanics have at American Airlines, then at the U.S. Coast Guard, then at
So like
the
his
US
first
Army.
patent was and simple, and I think this is kind of cool too, because we all struggle in different areas. And he said his worst class was thermodynamics in college, and that was literally his first patent. And he was still working for another company, but it was the freaking lights on the end of wings. And I'll get this all wrong, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, luckily we have the guy right here to fix it.
Right? I'll screw it all up.
Yeah, the only class I made a D in college was thermodynamics. Had a 69.4 average, zero curve, and the jerk wouldn't give me a C. But anyway, my first invention was thermodynamics. It was nav position lights on the end of the MD-80s, and they were burning out too quick. But they were burning out things I'd picked up in material science at General Dynamics. I knew the wiring was underrated temperature-wise, added thermally conductive epoxy to it, dissipated the heat. They lasted forever. And I made a hero out of the engineers and the mechanics that gave me that opportunity. So that's the first opportunity that I solved at American. Then we started solving problems for tachometer generator cables on the braking systems of the landing gear, and then other corrosion problems, and just one thing led to another, and they just kept giving me opportunities.
So the company he was working for they came to him and said, we're having all these corrosion issues. So literally, like, if you, next time you get on an airplane, look at it looks like a shark fin on the bottom or the top of the airplane. That's an antenna. And so where the
VHF antenna.
For the rest of us, it's a damn
very
antenna.
Very high frequency radio antenna. VHF.
It's expensive shit. So.
The part number is AG843000-01.
Okay, Rain Man, tone it down. So.
Think about the audience. They're just like.
Yes, exactly. Like me, I'm like, Rain Man.
It's simple. You just
tone it down. Tone it down. So anyway, he says he went back to the sales company he was working for. He said, I think I can fix this corrosion problem, because he was at American Airlines, and they were like, God, we're having all these corrosion issues. So these antennas where you bolt them. So I have learned a lot about chemistry since I've met Jeff, because I was like, man, that just never made sense in college. I was like, I had to, I have a nursing degree. I worked in the ICU and the ER, but like chemistry, I worked hard enough to get an A, but realistically, I'm probably like a D- chemistry person, and I just worked hard enough because again, I came from the ranch.
I got a B in all 16 hours, and that's probably an F+ or F-.
Anyway, 2 dissimilar metals on the galvanic coupling chart. Remember the chart in chemistry?
That'd be the periodic table.
The periodic table, yeah.
Okay, so the further away they are on the periodic table, the more corrosion there's going to be. And so the fuselage, the round part of the airplane, and the antenna have to bolt together with a steel bolt. Well, that's aluminum and steel. And I'm sure I'm going to get corrected here somewhere, but those are very far away on the periodic table, aka
you can't attach
a
them.
shit ton from the range of corrosion. And so they were having all these corrosion issues. So they're like, Jeff, can you fix this? And so he went back to his employer in sales at the time and said, I think I have an idea. I can fix this, but you're going to have to give me, like, I can't be out selling and fixing it at the same time. Like, you're going to have to give me some time. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And so he literally quit his job, there's a whole nother story of that, like with his partner, quit the same day at the same time, blah blah blah, and then went to his garage and started his company in his garage. So the American dream is alive and well for somebody that can start there's all kinds of cool stories from his, they literally started the company in the garage to solve a problem at American Airlines. When those antennas that you look at, when they bolt to the airplane, they were using a rubber sealant, and it would dry out and corrode. So they had to cut a hole in the aircraft to get the antenna off. They couldn't get it off because that aircraft has to go down how many days?
That would be with the old material, not my material.
Yes, the old material.
Just like,
but it has to go in for heavy
to bring
maintenance.
the slow people up.
So regardless of whether that antenna is working or not, to go into heavy maintenance, those antennas have to come off. And they couldn't get them off, or they quit working, which means like what's the VFR is like how you land, so you know you're landing in the right spot. I'm like, important shit. My point. And it was so stuck to the plane, they had to take in my mind, a chainsaw and like cut a hole.
Bit jigsaw, but yeah.
In the freaking airplane. And Jeff figured out how to fix that problem. So they were in.
You just screwed up the whole
I
story.
butchered the whole story.
You know what my favorite thing about this whole deal is
I'm
I
being
get
quiet.
Andrea's story, and then I'll get Jeff to fix the story,
But then,
and then I'll just be right in the middle with
she's
the
got-
real story.
Like Rain Man fixes the story, and then I'm like,
she got shit so out of order. Good.
I'm trying to speed you up a little bit because we could
What?
be here for days.
Just
You're confusing the shit out of people. But anyway.
the key word I got all of this: important shit.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Phrase,
You got
key
that.
phrase.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, kind of like that. But
Grew up on the rain.
no, I quit. We tried to buy the company that we were working for, selling stuff, and we went in, quit on the same day, October 1, 97. We had a meeting, so they didn't really come say, hey, will you figure this out? We started our company with nothing to sell. We were going to design wire harnesses, and we'd already started this program for that other company, and we walked away from it for antenna gaskets. And about probably 6 months later, American came back to us and said, hey, we got this antenna stuck to the aircraft. You've been testing this stuff for 2 years. We need you to figure out how to develop this and fix it. And just a lot of good people believed in the work ethic we had and gave us opportunities. So
the first thing, like, I'm going to get to the cool parts of the story. So the first thing, oh my God, Scott, I didn't
Whoa.
get kicked under the table. I got the timeout.
What's the
No.
bathroom break?
yeah.
It's a good idea, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really invested in this because I care more about business than horses. I said it. All right, guys. We're having a lot of fun with Jeff and Andrea, so we're going to go ahead and make this a part 2. Check that out in a few days. This has been The Gauge, hosted by me, Chance Conrado, produced and edited by our guy, Ty Yeager. Shout out to the executive producers, Dustin Pointer and Cody Denton. Marketing and content produced by Riley Choan. Make sure to rate and review this podcast, as well as follow The Gauge on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to subscribe to The Gauge wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you guys next time.